Hi everyone, and you are welcome to this lecture, CRUD Files. In this lecture, we are going to understand what CRUD meaning is, then we will learn about open function, and we will see the modes that can be used with this function. After that, we will learn how we can create a file, read data from file, append data to a file, delete a file. And I will end up this lecture by a quick summary. So let's get started. Let's start by understanding what CRUD is. Simply, CRUD is an acronym for Create, Read, Update, Delete. So CRUD comes from the first letter of these four words. And these four words represent the four operations that usually can be applied on a file. So usually once we create a file, we could read data, update the content inside the file, or delete this file totally. The most important function that we usually use with files is open. Open, simply it's a function help to open the file. You have to know that whenever you want to deal with a file, you have to open a file, do whatever you want to do, and then close the file. And you see here close, all the letter capital, because it's quite important once you do the job that you want to do with a file to close that file. Otherwise, this file will be considered not available for any other process that want to handle this file. Usually, when you want to deal with a file, you will write your code in this way. So you will say file reference equal to open, file name, and mode. Then as I mentioned, do whatever you want to do, and then you have to close the file using close function. Now to understand what these parameters are, it's very simple. File name, it's a string, and usually should be the file name if it's available in the same current working directory, or you have to specify the full path of the file that you want to deal with. Mode is a string defining which mode you want to open the file in, and we will talk in details later on about mode. From this syntax here, we can understand that whenever we want to deal with a file, I'm going to use the function open first, and this is quite important. Now let's talk about mode. What I mean by mode. Usually, when you want to open a file, maybe you want to read data from a file, write data inside a file, append data to a file, and this is what you are usually do. Now, for each one of these operations, we have a mode. So when you want to open a file, you have to specify the mode. For example, R, which means I want to open a file for reading, and there is error will happen if the file does not exist. A, which means I want to open a file for appending data, and I want to create the file if it does not exist. W, which means I want to open a file for writing, and I want to create the file if it does not exist. The difference between append and write. Append will write at the end of the file, where write will write the data from the beginning of the file. In other words, write will overwrite the original content of the file. The last mode, as you see here, is X, and usually we use it to create a file, and this one should return an error if the file exists. So this will help you to not overwrite any file like what W does. Also, you have to know that we can add B after the mode. So if you want to deal with the file as a binary file, simply just put B after each one of the mode. So for example, if I say RB, this means I want to open a file for reading the actual bytes of the file. In other words, the raw content inside the file. Now let's move to PyCharm IDE to see some examples about how we can deal with files. The first example that I want to show you is about how we can create a file. In order to do that, mainly I'm going to use three functions. Open, which will help me to open the file, and I have to specify two things, the file path and the mode in which I want to open the file. Then I will use write function, which will help me to write the content inside the file. And the last function that I'm going to use is close, which will help me to close the file. First of all, I'm going to create a file. It's named dummy.txt, and I want to write this file or create this file inside this directory C, users, summer, desktop, test, dummy.txt. Now, if I open the directory test, you will see now it's an empty directory. As you see here, I type R before this path, this to deactivate all or any special character within the path. After that, I will open the file, so I have to specify the file path, and then I say W, which means I want to open the file for writing data, and if the file is not available, W means please create this file. After that, I want to write some data, so using the file object that I get from open, I will say fo.write, and then I will write some sentences like you are welcome to my course. In this course, you will learn a lot. Python is a great programming language. As you see here, I used multiple \n, and the purpose of that to write each one of these sentences in an individual line. Now let me run this. So right click, then run temp, and I will wait. So now process finished with exit code 0. So let me go back to my directory. As you see here now, I have this text file. If I open it, you will see the 3 sentences that have been written using write function. Also, it's very important to know that once I finish writing the content inside my file, I close that file. And this is quite important to be careful from. Now let's learn how we can read content from a file. So I will take this part, I will comment, and then I will show you what you have to do if you want to read data. Now, because I already created the file, so this path has a valid file. Then I will open a file, but now I will not open it for writing, I want to open it for reading. Then instead of fo.write, I will remove this line and I will say fo.read. And read function will help me to read the content from the file. So I will get a string in the output. Then I'm going to print this string to check if I will get the same content from the file. So if I print string, then I will run. As you see here, I get, you are welcome to my courses. In this course, you will learn a lot. Python is a great programming language. So I read everything from my file. Sometimes I don't want to read everything. Maybe I want to read, for example, only the first 10 characters or the only 20 characters. So if you want to do that, you have to specify here n. And n in this case is number of characters that you want to read from the content inside the file. If I run now, as you see, I will get you are welcome to m. Number of characters in this string is equal to 20. As you see, read function will help me to read the content from the file, so I can read the whole content or I can specify how many characters I want to read. But sometimes, in some cases, I want to process the file line by line. In order to do that, we have another function, its name readLines. This function will give you a list of strings, where each one of these strings represent one line inside your file. So I will now replace fo.read by fo.readLines. Then I will say, instead of print string, I will say for s in string print s. I will run. As you see, the first sentence has been printed, the second sentence has been printed, and the third sentence has been printed, which means read lines give me a list of lines, and each one string is one line inside my file. The last function about reading I want to talk about, its name is readable, and this function helps me to know if this file is available for reading or not. Sometimes some files could be not available for reading because of permissions inside the operating system. So let me say is readable equal to readable, and then I will print is readable and run. As you see here, I got true. Why true? Because this file, which is dummy.txt, is available to be read inside this operating system. Until now, we have talked about how we can create a file and how we can read data from a file. Now let's see how we can append data to a file. I mean by appending here, writing data at the end of the file. In other words, I don't want to overwrite the original content. First of all, I will remove everything and I will paste this code snippet. It's quite easy. I will specify the file path, which is the same file that I used before, dummy.txt. Then I will open the file, but note here that I am using A, which means appending, not W. Then I will use write function. So write function will be used whether you use A or W, doesn't matter, because write at the end will send content to the file. But in case of append, this content will be sent to the end of the file. \n, which means go to a new line, then add this sentence, which is mainly you will learn about Python programming language. Let me run. After that, I will go to this directory. I will open the file. And as you see here, this is the new sentence that has been added to the file. Now, the last two operations that I want to show you about the file is how we can rename a file and how we can delete a file. So, in order to do that, I will take this path first, then I will import OS, then I will say file path, and then new file path equal to, and let me say the name is new dummy. In order to rename a file, we will use a function, its name os.rename, and this function will take two strings, source and destination, which mean the old file path and the new file path. And as you see here, the difference between the two paths is only the file name. If I run and go to the directory, you will see now the file name is what? Is new dummy. Now let's see how we can remove this file. So I will get back to PyCharm. And now, because the new file path is the actual path, I will remove everything and simply I will use a function, its name remove. And you have just to specify the path of the file that you want to remove. So os.remove new file path, run. If I go to the directory, nothing inside my directory because the file has been removed. And that's all for this code session. Now let's recap what we have learned in this lecture. First of all, CRUD has been defined as an acronym for create, read, update, delete. And after that, we talked about how we deal with file, and we say whenever you want to deal with a file, you have to open, process, and close. And it's highly important to close the file. We see together the function open, and we see that it's quite important to deal with file because usually whenever we want to read, write, or append data, we have to use open function. Now please refer to the file CRUD Files appendix, in which you will find all the available functions in this lecture have been summarized. Also please refer to the file CRUD Files challenges, in which you will find some challenges to practice what you have learned in this lecture. Thank you very much for your time, and if you are available, join me in the next lecture.